Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Thursday, the 14th day of the month of August, 2025, Thursday of the 19th week of the year, the 19th week in Ordinary Time, and it is also a day in which we honor the memory of St. Maximillian Kolbe, the conventual Franciscan who gave his life to save that of one of his Jewish fellow prisoners at the concentration camp in Auschwitz in Poland in 1941, I think it was. He dies on this day on August the 14th by lethal injection, and he is associated many times with the Blessed Virgin Mary because, again, it was the Vigil of the Assumption, and he did have a devotion to her, and so kind of this link, together of these 2 days. And so remember all of those who have the courage always to give up something, so that others may live. Those, whether it be, by giving their own life or, in other ways and shapes and forms, So the understanding of ourselves is that we are called always to be a people who give and never fail to give and never try to stop giving. And Maximilian, having given basically the most powerful of the gifts that he had his very life, again, to save his fellow prisoner who was destined to die, who I believe had a family. And so, again, the sacrificing of his own life for that, again, giving us this great model of what it means to trust in God and trust in God's goodness for us and God's care for us, even in the most dire and awful and terrible situations. Our readings for today, we continue now moving into the book of Joshua, as Joshua has taken over for Moses. And here God speaks to Joshua. Again, God did not make Joshua the one to lead everybody in. Again, Moses does that with God's approval. But now God will speak to Joshua about what he is to do next. And the first thing is to enter the promised land. And so here we have another event of a water splitting so that the Israelites may pass through on dry land. And with the backdrop of today's water behind me, this is what happens at the banks of the Jordan River. The high priest will take the Ark of the Covenant into the Jordan, and as they do so, it dries up, it backs up to become a wall to the right and to the left as the Israelites move forward, actually the north and to the south, as the Israelites move forward again into the promised land with, again, this great ceremony, this great fanfare, this great action, this great motion, again, of God's destiny for them. Again, as they were freed, crossing through a sea, now they are placed into liberty, crossing into the promised land, again, in this very way. And it remains, the sea remains blocked until all the Israelites pass through, and then they take the Ark of the Covenant through the rest of the bank, and then the sea flows back as it was. Now, the Jordan is not that deep, so, again, this isn't like, again, and neither, again, was the Red Sea, or was it basically a tributary of it, or whatever it was? Again, the point is that God makes way for people to enter into what God's promises are. And that's where the beauty and wonder, again, of God being seen, having taken this people of Israel, again, from the dire situation, passing through, again, a cleansing water, and now does so again as they move from the wandering in the desert, finally into the land that is theirs, that will now be theirs, that has been theirs. The problem is there are people who live there now, and we will see a little bit, again, of what happens now within that situation. In Matthew's Gospel, we have, again, this great call of what forgiveness means. And basically, again, Luke does it a little bit better, but here in Matthew's Gospel, again, the question is raised to Jesus. Again, you're talking about forgiveness. How many times should I forgive my brother or my sister? Is it only 7 times? And Jesus basically says, no, it's much more than that. And then gives this parable, again, of a person who owed great money to his master, his boss, or whatever it is, and who was going to be thrown into jail, because of this debt that he wasn't repaying back. And the guy asks for leniency. The guy asks for help, and this boss, this master, whatever he was, gives it to this man, again, in this great show of generosity. And the man is struck by this, it seems, and his life can be a little bit more at peace. But then he encounters a fellow servant or whatever, a fellow worker who owes a much smaller amount to him, and he demands it and then begins to choke him and everything else like that. And the guy is showing true ingratitude, for what the situation is that he is now in, and having been delivered from his own debt. And again, the master finds out about this, and basically he wants to, again, throw the guy into prison so he pays back the very penny, because again, obviously the impact of being forgiven himself did not distill, did not integrate into this man's very self, and he could not return the same kind of forgiveness to those who also were in debt to him. Again, if you do not forgive your brother or your sister from your heart, then neither can God forgive you. Again, this kind of warning, in the sense of where our actions, when we receive God's wonder and God's beauty in our lives, means that they must mirror that in our responsibilities, in our relationships with each other. If they don't, then we're lying. Then we're hypocrites. We cannot say that we love you, and then treat each other terribly. We cannot say that I care about you, and treat each other terribly. That is giving a lie to whom what we are, and it shows the world that we are not sincere, and we are not true in who we call ourselves to be. That is not our call. It is always to be much more than this world would expect, much more than this world would think is necessary, much more, again, than we ourselves might think we are capable of. And with God's help and God's power, all is possible. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God. May the Lord give you his peace.